And welcome back once again to the Talking Archive. I'm Josh Jacobs, and our conversation with Chuck Southcott, radio personality and program director, concludes. Now, Chuck, tell us about some of your favorite people you got to work with in radio over the years.
Two of my favorites were Milton Berle and Steve Allen, though. They were fun. I love Milton's line. He come in and sat down and opened the mic, or we had his mic open, and he said, "You know something, Chuck?" I said, "What's that?" "I never miss your show. Never miss your show." I said, "You don't?" He said, "No. I never listen to it, so I never miss it." And that's how the interview began.
And then Steve Allen, got to meet him about 30 years ago. He was interviewing on 89.3 KPCC when they had a big band jazz and swing midday show, and really, really friendly. And at the time, they were trying to put the Steve Allen show in syndicated repeats. Unfortunately, that never did happen, but just a really nice guy. I'm sure you got to interview him quite a few times over the years.
Yeah, we got to be pretty friendly. That was, he was a special man.
His wife, Jane Meadows, I got to meet about 11 years after that at the Game Show Congress. She was also a very, very sweet lady. And I didn't know this until that afternoon, but she said that before she and Steve started dating, she had dated Bill Cullen for a while, the game show legend. And but eventually they called the dating off, and Bill eventually married his wife, Ann, who he's married to for about 35 years. But she said, "I almost married Bill Cullen." She said, "But the two people I miss the most are my Steve and Bill Cullen."
She called me one day, and she said, "I know you mention birthdays, and mine is coming up, and I'm afraid you may mention it, but I'm up for a role, and I have to play someone a little younger than what you will find is my age, and I'm wondering, please don't say the age." And she told me the age, and I said, "Oh, no. According to my material, you were born on so-and-so," and I mentioned an earlier year. Mm-hmm. And she said, "Oh, okay, mention my age then." I don't know why I never forgot that, but it struck me as funny. But Steve Allen gave me a wonderful compliment, and he didn't even know it till I thanked him. One of my favorite things was to make disc jockeys out of whoever was my guest, and try to get them to talk about something they liked to hear. And I just give them the entire playlist that I had created for the radio station, so I was safe. They wouldn't ask for anything not acceptable. I said, "Pick anything you like. We'll play it." And I had a music sheet all set for Steve. And when we sat down, this was at his office, we decided to record there, and he said, his comment was, "Ooh, my compliments to the chef." That's what he said. And I said, "Thank you." And that's why we always got along. And I did a birthday special on him and on Milton.
Wow.
Which you can't hear anymore because you know what happens to tape.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Johnny Carson when he moved the Tonight Show from New York City to Burbank. He found out that, except for a handful of episodes, all the episodes of his show had been erased. And so part of his new contract moving out here was, you're going to save every single episode. You're going to put the tapes into a climate-controlled room so it does not disintegrate. Unfortunately, most of us haven't done that.
That's right. Oddly enough, little cassette tapes last.
That's true, yeah.
At least longer.
True. I know that there's a baking process they do for television tape. There's a website called Obsolete Videos, and
yeah, I know a fellow who says he knows how to do that, and he's an announcer, was a classical music announcer here in town one time, and he knows how to do it. I said, well, it's a little late, friends.
What was the best piece of advice you ever got when it came to broadcasting?
I think, and it's the hardest thing to do, be yourself. It's hard to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Some people find it absolutely impossible, and that's why they have that's why they make a lot of money. but to be yourself, because radio is the most intimate of all media. And if you're fortunate in that being yourself works, you're in good shape.
You were talking about the intimate aspect of radio. When you were on the air, were there any callers that inspired you, or maybe you were able to inspire them, and they said, "Hey, Chuck, thanks for this moment when I was, struggling. Your words of wisdom, or your joke, or your something you said just really brightened my day up."
Yeah, but I can't talk about it.
Oh, that's right.
No, if it happens to be that intimate a situation, then it's really that person's intimacy.
Yeah.
And only theirs.
Well, Chuck, thank you for talking with me. Is there anything you'd like to add to our conversation?
Well, I still don't have no hit record. I ain't got no hit record yet.
Well, let us know when your new record comes out, and we'll see you in promoting it.
No, I don't have great words of wisdom. Do you remember a thing I used to do? The modern rock countdown?
No.
I used to play a Montavani kind of sweet violin-based instrumental. And over that, read the names and titles of all of the weirdest rock and roll records that were out. But I had to do it in a stentorian way.
Mm.
And I found it funny, and I had good comments on it. Did it once a week, because that's when they were the modern rock tracks.
Yeah.
The goofy names.
Did that inspire Pat Boone to do his In a Metal Mood, No More Mr. Nice Guy album, where he did rock and roll tunes, big band jazz swing style?
It might have. I've worked with Pat. I produced his radio show. He had a Christian show, and I put that together for him for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fun. He was easy to work with. But no, I'll tell you who inspired it,
mm-hmm.
and that was Steve Allen. He would take the lyrics to terrible rock songs,
mm-hmm.
and he would read them as if they were sheer poetry. And it was hilarious, absolutely hilarious. So I read the names of the modern rock groups and the titles of their rotten records. And I would do that the way Steve Allen would read the lyrics. So I took that from Steve. And it worked out fine. And there have been people who came up to me and they, in a very deep voice, they would say the name of one of those songs or one of those groups. And I'm thinking, there's somebody who got it. They got what I was doing and remembered it.
Well, now I'm thinking about, Alex Trebek every now and then on Jeopardy would read the lyrics of rap songs, and people would try to guess, the contestants had to guess what the songs were. It was absolutely hilarious. It just, this,
Yeah, same thing. Same thing. And yet you can make money on Jeopardy with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And that's a Merv Griffin property.
Oh, yeah.
And the most successful game show, I guess, in history, truly.
True, yeah. I mean, probably on more years than, well, almost as far as
Steady.
Question trivia is concerned. The Price is Right is basically the guessing of prices of prizes and gifts and merchandise. But as far as genuine question and answer, Jeopardy is king of that, definitely.
Yeah.
In fact, the funny thing is that, Don Pardo, who was the announcer of the original Jeopardy, I met him about 17 years ago at the Game Show Congress Convention. And they were honoring Bob Stewart, who created the original Price is Right and Password and Pyramid. And somebody said, "Hey, Don Pardo's in the lobby," and we thought, okay, let's meet him and just say hello, and he'll probably turn in for the night. He talked to us for 3 hours standing up. I mean, this was a guy who was 89 years old, didn't sit down at all, stood for the entire time. And he told the story about how he was announcing the original Price is Right. And he said that Price was moving to ABC, and Pardo had a lifetime contract with NBC. In fact, by that point, he was the last person alive to have a lifetime contract. So what happened was he was making $50,000 a year with Price, and if Price is Right left NBC and Pardo stayed with NBC, he'd be making $400 a month, pretty much doing nothing. But it was part of his contract. So Goodson Taubman wanted him to go to ABC and continue with Price and Bill Cullen. And they said, we'll give you $150,000 if you'll drop your contract with NBC and come with us. They said, think about it over the weekend. So he thought about it, told his wife. He turned it down. And then he said, my wife was so angry with me, she wouldn't talk to me for 4 months. She cooked for me. She let me live in the house, but she wouldn't talk to me. Then Jeopardy came along. And he made the right decision because the Price is Right on ABC lasted less than a year and a half, and Jeopardy, its first incarnation, lasted 11 years. And then after that, all the shows had moved west, and Pardo is still in New York, so that's why they gave him NBC's Saturday Night Live to be the announcer of, because they figured, okay, here's a job for you.
Yeah, good for him.
Oh, yeah. And he continued on until his passing in 2014. But, Jeopardy, I mean, brilliant format. In fact, they wanted originally for Merv Griffin to have dumbed down questions, and he said, okay, I'll make the questions easier. He basically threw the memo away and made the hard questions, and still is a hit. Still is.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I can't get any of the questions until the final Jeopardy. I get that more than I get the so-called easy ones. So that's what you call an unfortunate break as far as mental capacity is concerned. You get the stuff, you think, oh, none of them got this but me. But I didn't get any of the other stuff. They all got it.
Yeah, too bad they couldn't phone a friend like you and...
Yeah. No, it's not a sure thing with me on those, but I tend to do pretty well on the hard ones and mess up the easy ones. Oh, well.
Exactly.
I don't know why.
I remember you also in radio had volunteered to be the announcer for Lloyd Ogilvy's Let God Love You program. How did you get that job?
I was the announcer for the church for a Broadway show thing that they did every year. They did a musical, the choir members. And the choir at Hollywood Pres was pretty good. And they had a lot of ability. So to raise funds for, sometimes a trip to Europe they might be doing to visit other churches and sing, that sort of thing, and they'd use that as a fundraiser. Then when they weren't doing that, they'd just use it to help the coffers of the church. But I was doing that one year, and Lloyd came up to me, and he said, I've been doing the television ministry for 5 years or whatever it was then. He said, we're going to go into radio. Would you like to be my announcer? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. So that's how that happened. He just brought it up at one of those shows. Then when he was retiring from the church to go to Washington, D.C. and be the chaplain for the U.S. Senate, he had a little get-together. And I don't know whether this is right for airing or not, for putting for your podcast or not.
Okay.
But it's true. He came up to me, and he said, I just found out you were never paid. You did it 10 years, and you were never paid. And I said, I didn't want to be paid. It was a ministry. I said, you were never paid. Why should I be paid? That was our conversation.
Wow.
But that's the kind of guy Lloyd was. And no, he was spectacular in many ways. But he knew that he would have to pay people. But even the books he was selling, that just went to pay for the broadcasts. Period. He didn't make money on that.
Wow.
No, he was a very special human being.
He was, yeah. And right now you're doing you're an announcer on KJazz. I forget, 88.1 FM, working for Saul Levine, correct?
Yes, he is responsible for the programming of that, and I had been asked to do that many years ago, and I had worked a little bit at KJazz for a while, and I really got tired of the drive from the North Valley to Long Beach every weekend. So I turned it down. Magnus took it, and he did it, several years. And then I had a call again to try it, and he said, no, you can do it from home. I said, okay, I'll do it. That's all it took.
There you go.
That's how that happened. And that format, that era of jazz, and it's primarily late 30s through the 40s, and of course, all-timers, and there aren't many of those.
Mm-hmm.
The Sinatra and Bennett, and this Diana Krall. There's some people who still fit the classic mold because of what they sing and what they perform. But I don't play many of those. But again, it's what Chuck Cecil used to do, and that was the origin of that show. It certainly wasn't my origin, but it's fun to do.
Oh, definitely, yeah. The swinging years is what Chuck Cecil's show was, and he did it well into his 90s.
Yes, he did, and we were good friends. He would promote me, I'd promote him, and even though what we provided was a little different, it kind of helped both of us.
Oh, definitely. And
he was on KGIL for a lot of years. Before that, KFI, of course.
Oh, yeah, because KFI was middle of the road for many years as well.
Yeah. No, he was a good guy, and interesting. One thing he was not comfortable with, and it's something you have to learn to be comfortable with, was working in front of a crowd. He didn't like that. He liked the cubbyhole, as all radio people do. They like to be alone, and they don't need anybody around. They just want to do it on their own. But it took me a while to get comfortable with it, but I think the Pioneer Broadcasters group gave me the more of an ease in front of people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And did you help start the Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters?
No, but I was early on. As a matter of fact, that was known as an older entertainers group. Very old.
Mm-hmm.
And at one time, I was the youngest member. Now, I'm part of the older members, like the rest of them.
I first heard about it through Doug Kramer, who worked with me at KKLA. Doug had worked at KFI for 23 years. I think he was at KHOF 99.5 from 1960 to 1985, and I forget what other stations he was at. I think he was at KIV 870 as well. And he says, yeah, you got to come to the Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters. I finally came for my only time in 2011 when they were honoring several DJs, including, I think, Sweet Dick Whittington was one of the people they were honoring that day. And it was a fun event. Got to meet Bob Eubanks there, Dr. George Fishbeck, and Dr. George was the same person in person as he was on air. And, just he kind of gives me the affirms my theory. People named George are unique characters. There's nobody else like them. But I said, can I get a picture with you? He's like, oh, sure. Would you look at that smile? And my dad remembers going down to the ABC7 studios in the early 80s, and Dr. George was, running around the studio, jumping up in the air, and just like a big kid,
Yeah, he was a character. He was fun. Well, I'm going to take off.
Okay, well, Chuck, thank you for interviewing with me.
I congratulate you on this, and I hope you get a lot of people so that you can make some money on it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
We'll talk soon, Chuck.
Okay.
Great to have Chuck Southcott on our show now. Now, something I forgot to tell you at the beginning of the interview, I actually met Chuck's son, Karl, who's also on radio, before I met Chuck. And I met Karl probably about 2 years before that. And when the Music of Your Life radio network started, Chuck was the program director and Karl is our supervisor. So Karl's in radio today himself as well, working for Westwood One. I think he's on the country format, and friends with him on Facebook. Got to see him at the Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters event that we discussed earlier. And until next time, keep your mind on the things above. And as you hit that open road, don't be a slow down spectator.